We are talking about the dumbing of America and how the GOP and their corporate overlords targeted the Department of Education and slammed it like a WrestleMania event. Because let's be honest, a well-informed public asks questions, and an uninformed, unintelligent public chants slogans, buys T-shirts, and votes against their own best interest. If you're here for some critical thinking, or you just want to watch me verbally do backflips through this political circus, hit like, smash subscribe, and share this with somebody who still thinks woke is a government mind control experiment. So let's go back to 1971. Bell bottoms were wide, afros were big, Nixon was sweating. This is when Lewis F. Powell, a corporate attorney for big tobacco, he decided that it was time for rich people to stop getting bullied by facts and take the narrative back, because nothing screams oppress like billionaires with yacht clubs and tax shelters. So to go back, the gist of the memo was, hey, rich people, hippies are loud. The professors are too liberal. The media isn't on our side. We need a long game, and we need to play dirty. This wasn't a gentle nudge towards bipartisanship. It was a hostile takeover blueprint. It was a corporate war plan to infiltrate every single institution. And just to remind everybody, who did Powell say was the biggest threat to American capitalism? Wasn't China, wasn't the Soviets, wasn't even disco. No, it was college students. And not just college students, professors, journalists, basically anybody who could read or ask a question or had any type of critical thinking skills. That was the real enemy. So Powell's solution? Get serious. Take over the college boards, rewrite curriculums, watch what professors are saying, fund right-wing think tanks, build media empires, and do it all under the guise of patriotism. It's actually quite smart. But I want you to understand that he literally called for constant surveillance of campuses. He urged corporate leaders to worm their way into faculty hirings, corporate endowments, and alumni networks. Influence, infiltrate, and control. And look, the man was not subtle about it. Here's what he said. The most articulate, the most vocal, the most prolific in their writing and speaking are often those who are rejected by our system. They are often young, shallow, and idealistic, but they are no means unintelligent. Translation, these kids are smart, motivated, and they're not buying our bullshit. So we need to outfund and outmessage them. And this line is really important in the memo. He says, the most disquieting voices joining the chorus of criticism come from perfectly respectable elements of society, from college campuses, from the pulpit, from the media, the intellectual and literary journalists. That is who was understanding what was happening to the American people by corporations. And they were taking the message that the people were saying in the street, that the activists were saying, and they were amplifying it. And therefore, they were corporate America's enemy number one. Today, we call all those people the woke mob or the liberal elites. Back then, that were just regular Americans doing their civic duty and or everyday jobs. Let's be clear, this wasn't about balance and this wasn't about debate. It was about silencing the dissenters and replacing education with indoctrination. And then convince everybody that it's the other side that's indoctrinating your children. I mean, if you're not educated, it's pretty easy to convince people of that. So as you can see, they didn't discover indoctrination. They manufactured the accusation so they could start doing it themselves. And guess what? It worked. I mean, we can look around. We see it worked 50 years later. Okay, so continuing down the historical journey, 1971's Powell Memo, it gave birth to the Heritage Foundation. And this baby did not crawl. It ran from the get-go. It came out writing legislation. It went on to publish the Mandate for Leadership, which is the prequel to Project 2025. Let's be clear. This is not some little pamphlet. This is a full-on authoritarian playbook on how to gut public institutions and hand the government over to corporate overlords. And on their targets, public freaking education. Why? Keep the public dumb and you can control them. Powell and his buddies, they pulled off the greatest PR heist in history. They were able to convince the American people that it was federal government incompetency and not corporate greed. So let's just be clear. When corporations poisoned our air and gutted our healthcare system, when they shipped all of our manufacturing overseas, nobody picked up pitchforks and torches and went and confronted the corporate oligarchs. No, we blamed the federal government for trying to put in healthy school lunches or trying to feed our children or provide systems for underprivileged kids. All right, so enter Project 2025, the education Armageddon. What does it want to do? Oh, just some light spring cleaning by abolishing the whole Department of Education. No cutting, no streamlining, just completely deleting it like it posted a bad, embarrassing TikTok. And who do they put in head of the Department of Education to do that? Linda McMahon. Yes, that McMahon, ex-wife of Vince McMahon, who has zero knowledge about education. And in fact, recently just called AI, artificial intelligence, literally artificial I intelligence, A1. She just came from a seminar on it, and she was on a stage in front of God and everybody talking about how A1 is going to just change and revolutionize our education system and our children. I don't think steak sauce is going to do that. But you know what's going to do that? Artificial intelligence. Yeah, that'll do that. AI will do that. A1 is just a delicious, tasty condiment. I don't think that's going to revolutionize anything. But really, why do they want to destroy the Department of Education? Most of what they do is to make sure that poor kids, that's Black, brown, and white kids that are poor, have the same opportunities as rich white kids. And somehow this is a liberal idea. This is a radical idea because all of a sudden we want everybody to have the same opportunities as wealthy people. And apparently that's just too radical. The Heritage Foundation's messaging for the last 50 years is that public education is woke indoctrination factories. Let's get something straight. They're not upset that your kids are learning to read, write, and arithmetic. They're upset that they're learning to question the status quo, that they're learning to question them, their authority, to ask, is it okay to pollute our waters, or could we find a better way? That's what they're afraid of. So here's what they're coming for. Title I funding, gone. So what does Title I do? Well, it kind of helps schools in lower income areas from becoming like Lord of the Flies. And what I mean by that is basically they just want to cut teachers and let kids be educated by YouTube videos and nice quotes. Student loan forgiveness, canceled. The same people who rail against a small fraction of these student loans being forgiven are the same people who cheer for billionaires to get tax cuts. And I'm sorry, if you're one of those people, you have been indoctrinated to think it is okay for billionaires to get tax cuts on the back of teachers and social workers, people who got a college education because they needed it to go into public service. But student loan forgiveness canceled because nothing says freedom like the shackles of lifelong debt, which, by the way, debt is literally another form of slavery. Federal protections for disabled and minority students canceled, vaporized, incinerated, because really equality is expensive, right? So basically public schools as we know it, gone. Now, if this all sounds like cartoonish and evil, it is. It is cartoonishly evil. But here's the kicker. They made people cheer for it. They convinced rural white families and working class Americans, the folks who rely on public education the most, that freedom means fewer resources, more censorship, absolutely no safety net. They branded the public school as the enemy, slapped the word choice on a privatization scheme. It's a scheme, and convince voters to set their own system on fire. So let's just understand, this isn't just bad policy. This is ideological arson. And that match was lit back in 1971. That is the most important thing to understand. This is a 50-year indoctrination and brainwashing that culminated in the dumbing of America. And I'm not saying the Democrats have done things great. This isn't a comparison of two parties. This is a look at one party, one system. What has the Republicans ever done, ever brought to the table that was based on building and creating bridges, and that wasn't about destroying, defunding, demoralizing, dismantling, demonizing Democrats? Again, so instead of bringing better ideas, they brought money, manipulation, and manufactured outrage. So here's where it gets just downright diabolical is because Powell's memo wasn't just a rant on like liberal colleges. It was built on the back of the civil rights movement. It's because Black and brown people started walking through the doors of higher education. And let's be clear, when women, Black and brown people, started to have the same opportunities as the wealthy elite, they lost their damn mind. And guess what they started calling it? I'm sure you guys all heard this little jingle called reverse racism. I think the best person should get the job, not the diversity hire. They literally have said that equity is discrimination against white people. And let's be clear that public education in America has never been equal. After Brown v. Board of Education, there was the Great White Flight, meaning that white Americans who were living in cities or with segregated communities all of a sudden were moved to the suburbs where Black people could not buy homes. And they created their own schools. And then they started petitioning, if you're paying more taxes in this white community, then your money should go to having a better school. But it doesn't matter that other people who don't have children in the school system still pay taxes for those school systems. Fairness means that all money coming in from collective taxes should create an equal system of education, that all public schools should provide the same level of education, food and nutrition, same opportunities. That's fairness. We may not all be born into the same opportunity, but with and through our public education, we should all be given the same opportunities that anybody else has. What you make of those opportunities are individualism. Because education benefits all of us as a society, elevates society as a whole, and makes us a huge player on the world stage, that we should root for all of our citizens to have the opportunity to either go through the public education system and higher learning if that's what they want, or to be able to enter into a great trade school. But either way, wealthy people, billionaires, should never deny the American people from gaining access to education. There's only one reason for them to want to do that, is if it affects them negatively. If us being educated affects them in a bad way. And it does, because it provides one thing: critical thinking skills. The reason critical thinking is so dangerous to them is because the less that we know how the system works, the easier we are to manipulate. Don't know how a bill becomes a law? Probably easier to convince you that George Soros is some sort of wizard pulling all of the strings. Don't know who controls education funding or how the Department of Education works? Let's just blame the drag queens, not the billionaires. And that's the goal. Gut education, confuse the public, flood the zone with BS, keep you so confused that you stop asking questions. And the real dark magic is that the people root for their own demise and champion billionaires, allowing them to run amok and walk into public institutions and gut it, destroy it, and cheer for it, not even understanding what it is that they're gutting, having zero clue or zero critical thinking to ask, what exactly are they cutting? Just read the tweets and believe the person who's gutting it. That seems like a good strategy. Good job, America. It's like a gaslighting boyfriend that cheats on you and then makes you think that you're paranoid and crazy for thinking he's cheating. The sickest part is they get people chanting, and the Department of Education, like it's going to lower gas prices. No, it's not going to lower gas prices. It's going to lower IQs. But this is the dream realized. Turn public education into a battlefield. They're hurling cultural grenades and walking away with a shitload of cash. They're letting us, the American people, fight over pronouns and bathrooms. This is what we're fighting over, with real problems in America. What little girl or little boy gets to have what name in school or play sports? This is what we're fighting about. When literally everything is burning down around us, when our stock markets are falling faster than a SpaceX rocket, we are fighting over the stupidest shit. This is what the dumbing of America looks like. And if you're a person who's constantly thinking that you're the patriot and you're using words like leftist media and liberal agenda and calling people woke and libtards, you are the ones who are indoctrinated. And I'll tell you exactly how they did it. They used politicians. They used media spin. They used churches, talk radio. Anger sells. hatred sells. And as they indoctrinate more people, their audience grows. They don't make decisions based on facts anymore. They don't do research anymore. They just believe what the person who's stealing from them is telling them. They don't question it. They're just like, might as well hand over your wallet. Take your firstborn and hand it over to them. That's what they want, your full and utter loyalty. No dissent, no critical thinking, no asking questions. Because after decades of this, they have literally rewired the brains of so many Americans. I mean, if you put this stuff on and you just listen to it all day long, of course, your brains are going to be rewired. If you're watching Fox News or any angry state-run news media that gets you sort of pumped up, you're going to hate all the things that they tell you to hate. You're never going to ask a question about it. How does drag queens really affect my life? Oh my God, well, they're indoctrinating our children to want to be drag queens. If you're busy yelling about trans kids in sports, you're not noticing that your schools just lost their arts program or your hospital closed, or that you're in a food desert or a healthcare desert, or that your town's only employer now moved to Bangladesh. And if you do notice it, they're going to convince you to blame the Democrats. And you're not going to even think twice about it because you're not even going to look at policy to see that it was them who did that. While you're shouting about all these things that don't matter, billionaires are buying their third yacht. Well, because every yacht needs a sub yacht, and that yacht needs a baby yacht, and you're champion for them to get more tax cuts on the backs of your children. But out of all of that, the biggest scam, charter schools, school choice. Sounds nice, right? Like a boutique shopping experience for your kids' education? Now with 30% off, more liberty. Woohoo! Let's be clear, school choice is really corporate code for defunding, divide, and divert. So who wins? Well, wealthy families win because they use taxpayer vouchers to send their kids to elite private schools, those ones with the Greek columns and the great fencing teams. Meanwhile, your neighborhood public school is holding a bake sale to replace the science lab's broken microscope that they've had since 1987. Seem fair? It's like handing a bunch of people a coupon to a 5-star steak dinner while the rest of us get McDonald's. And we don't even get to supersize it. But the kicker? Guess who picks up the tab? Our tax dollars fund private education. So let me be clear. Elon Musk's kids can participate in these charter schools and get discounts on these vouchers while the rest of us foot the bill and watch our public schools in our communities be bled dry. And when diversity is the enemy of chartered schools and they're able to siphon off public school funds and they're able to cherry pick students, they leave the most vulnerable kids behind. So selling the scam and talking about empowering parents is really just how they defund the public sector to go to the private sector. So it's really just important to watch the money trail. You'll always know what you need to know by watching where the money goes. Ooh, that's kind of catchy. You'll always know what you need to know by watching where the money goes. I like that because it's not about empowerment. It's about fragmentation. You splinter the system until there's no system left to work. And that is why Republicans for decades have not only been selling this message to us, but have systematically behind the scenes been making it not work. They make it not efficient. If it's not efficient, then you won't like it, won't want it, and will chant for its own demise. The reason this is so important, the reason this is so dire, is because the dumbing of America is affecting all of us. Okay, so let's cut through all this crap. School choice, not about freedom, about control. Vouchers are not equity. Charter school isn't about innovation. It's about indoctrination. And privatization is just another way for corporate greed to win. Well, all of this is done to plot the demise of our education system, to dumb Americans down, and we are footing the bill for it. We're not only cheering for it, we're paying for it. They get rich off of the backs of our children, of our system, of our democracy, and we're letting it happen. And we're selling our kids' future and the future of our country down the river. Their newest weapons of public education mass destruction is trans kids in sports, bathroom bans, which really means just the opportunity to look up your little girl's skirt. Pretty creepy. Drag queens reading books to kids. Groomer hysteria, brought to you from Nazis in 1940 who used the word groomers and pedophiles as a scare tactic. Book bans that make 1950s McCarthyism look like Sesame Street. They're trying to control the narrative. So let's call it what it is. This isn't about children's safety. It's about silencing us. It's about making kids less informed, less empathetic, and less likely to challenge authority. A generation that understands what oppression looks like when they learn history about slavery. A generation that understands their rights when learning about civics and the civil rights movement. A generation that sees through their lies. Well, they don't vote for fascists. They don't vote for corporate takeover. They don't lay down and let people roll over them and then cheer them on while they do it. Once we start thinking critically, they can't own you anymore. And that, my friend, is why they're coming for public education like it owes them money. What we need to do is we need to break the spell as best as we can, because let's be honest, most of these people didn't just wake up one day and think the Department of Education was evil. We need to show them how they've been indoctrinated, how they've been brainwashed. I think arguing with them about the issue at hand is a useless one. It's already been proven to be useless. We need to show them how they got there. We need to show them that there's been a plan in place for 50 years to indoctrinate them and brainwash them. They have no problem telling us that, but we actually have receipts. So let's show them that. All right, folks, if you've liked this video, if you do think that there is a strategic dumbing of America, please like, please subscribe, please share with everybody you know, especially for those who think woke is a 4-letter word. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.